This call is now being recorded.
Cool. So I think to kick things off, it would really help Regina to understand a few like small details. So one, what would you, in your own words, say that you do or that you're known for?
Right, great question. So definitely, I think what it is that I help people. This is what I do myself, and this is what I help people do, is take the knowledge that they've amassed over, for most people, a long time, through trying out different things. I'm a huge fan of like multi-passionate entrepreneurs, as people say, but the knowledge that they've gotten from trying out different things and specifically kind of failing forward, if you will, at some of those things, to the place where they have this set of knowledge, or this collection of like pieces of knowledge that they're excited about and passionate about. And it typically ends up being the stuff that people get the most questions about. How do you do such and such? Or, why do you do X like that instead of like this? It's the things that other people generally notice about you. And so anyway, it's kind of taking that stuff that you've learned how to do through skills, through research, through testing things out, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, and learning how do you create products out of that? How do you productize your knowledge so that more people can benefit from it? So typically, I'm working with people who aren't necessarily looking for the next big launch, like they're not necessarily wanting to make $1 million out of it, but they're like, I just want to help all the people and answer all the questions, and it's simply more effective to put it into a book or into a course or into a workshop. And so that's what I've done with my knowledge, and again, that's really my aim of helping people. And typically, those people start out as bloggers, writers of some sort, or podcasters, and then evolve into wanting to help more people and reach more people. Does that kind of make sense, or was that too long of an answer?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I'm curious, is this the audience that you always knew you wanted to serve, or, did you start somewhere else and then this kind of evolved over time?
Yeah, great question. So it is the situation of, as you grow and do new things, you're wanting to show other people how to grow and do those new things. And so it started in a million places. I've had at least 12 different businesses, like real actual business entities that I formed and was doing different things, from cleaning to T-shirts and cupcakes, all kinds of stuff. But what I really loved most, I think, was my time as a freelance writer and my time as a designer who would also work on people's websites, because it was there in the forming of content and the presentation of people's brands online that I started really being able to take my education from school as a business management, take my education in business and apply it to people's problems. Like, I need to stand out online. I need to sell more products. I need to learn what my minimum viable product even is so that I can just get started. So anyway, so it kind of started there. It was just like helping people start businesses that mattered, and it was usually through graphics or maybe some like basic level consulting. What is an LLC? What is a corporation? And then it just grew into really just narrowing down on wanting to help people who loved information and passing on information.
That's super interesting. So you started out by really advising people on business practices, like you said, like sole proprietorship versus LLC, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's really evolved over time.
Yeah, definitely.
So knowing that at this point you are so much of, I think I read somewhere the term like infopreneur, like you're a teacher. And really that all starts with consulting, because consulting is teaching in a sense. What are some of the primary products that, and maybe it's services too. What are some of the primary like drivers of your revenue at this point? Like what's sustaining you?
Great question. So right now, what I did was I took down the ability to purchase any of my online courses so that I could revamp them and change them into even more actionable pieces of content. Like, I always try to make sure that I'm developing stuff that people will actually finish and consume and get the full benefit from. And I think they're like that, but I want to make them even more so like that. So right now, the primary income that I have is coming from my ebooks and some print materials that I have on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And then also from a new program that I developed that it is part online course, but it really is like there's a specific prescription that goes with it of how you can get this done in 10 days. And there's a community that goes with it. And I think it's more than an online course because of the way it's structured for people. And it's just helping them set up, ongoing funnels in this kind of humanized way. So it's called Funnels with Friends. So that's my main income right now.
So funnels are the unsexiest thing ever. So I love that you have turned it into Funnels with Friends. That is so great. I'm so curious. No great product exists in a vacuum, right? I mean, you had to determine whether or not there was going to be a need for this. So can you kind of walk me through when you had the idea for that, for example, like how did you go about testing it? How did you figure out whether your audience was going to care about it?
Great question. So one of the first things I did was in a larger sense than just having small conversations with people, which I think is a great place to start. And sometimes that's all I do. I won't lie to you. Like, sometimes a tweet will come through on Twitter and it's like, do you have a product for such and such? Or do you have a blog post that is such and such? And I'll leave the tweet open in a screen and then go create something seriously for like 3 or 10 hours and then get back to them like, hey, funny thing is, I just finished creating this. So yes, I do. And I'll tweet it back. So that happens sometimes with these small conversations. But one of the things I did was I did a workshop. It was free at the time, but you had to attend live. I didn't do any replays, which is not something I normally do, but I really wanted to get the attendance there live and get the questions and the energy there live. And it was about, selling online like a ninja, but like in a humanized way, because that is definitely what I go for. Like, the word funnels used to make me cringe. I tried 10 million different words instead of funnels so that I didn't have to use that word. And then I finally just got over it. And I was like, let's just switch how people look at this. And so basically, through this online workshop that I did, I was able to hear people's frustrations. Like, they too thought funnels were just going to be like, so you want me to send 10 pushy emails in a row like all the other funnels I've ever been a part of? Or, like, what is this cheesy marketing tactic? I've been hearing about, like, how do you actually make it, customer focused? Because that was how I advertised the workshop. Like, we're going to create user-focused funnels. And anyway, the whole point is, through this workshop and the questions people were asking and some of the, like, misconceptions that I could totally understand because I had the same ones, I was able to develop this program. And honestly, it was several months later that I finally developed this program that answered those questions and made it what I call humanized sales on autopilot. Yes, it's possible because it's really just based on people's thoughts of being consumers themselves, and then also not wanting to be too pushy, because a lot of people in my audience are introverts and they don't feel loud online and they don't like receiving loud emails. And so, sorry, that's the longest answer ever, but I get really excited because it's finally clicking for people that a funnel is really just timely, helpful content. It's what you're hopefully creating anyway, and you're putting it in a specific order to bring about a desired result for the person who's opening these emails and consuming these workshops or whatever it is that you're making, and then for you as a brand owner. And I mean, that's literally all it is like an intelligent sequence of content, if you will. So, sorry.
Right. And no, there's no need to apologize, because that's really, I mean, this, more than anything, more than an interview, this is really just a conversation. And if we're hitting on the parts of it that get you excited, then we're going in the right direction. And I have something really actually meta to ask now that we've talked about the fact that, you know, your audience is really sensitive to the whole idea of funnels. So you have this live workshop, you know, and it wasn't recorded. You wanted to get actual conversations going. So you learned in that workshop that, you know, your audience is really, really weirded out by this whole concept and they don't feel like it's them. So how did you then use that when you created your own funnel content and launching the course? Like what did you do to, like, what kind of content did you create in your funnel to make people feel at ease and like they weren't being pushed into it?
Gotcha. Great question. So to simplify, first off, just a side note to the entire world and to everyone creating information. I feel like one of the things that you can do best for any concept you want to teach is to systemize it. Just kind of show people a way to think through it. And then they'll obviously like apply some of their own life experience and creativity to it. But really showing people a way to think through a problem is one of the best ways to teach. And it's the way I learned too. Like, as a silly example, I never used to understand how to wrap my hands before my like Muay Thai striking class, like before boxing or anything like that. And it would frustrate me, and I stopped going to class until I finally took this one training, and I was getting a certification, and they showed a system of how to wrap your hands. Like, it was explained in this process. And now I can wrap my hands, your hands, anyone's hands with my eyes closed because they systemized something that was so confusing to me, just as a simple example. And so it works in any industry, right, in my opinion. And so I heard the frustrations that people were saying. And for me, I try to create content that's a part of the system. And basically what I mean is, I think when you're sending somebody a piece of content, in general, as an information product seller, you're either trying to educate them or motivate them. And sometimes content can do both. But what I do is I set up basically based on where somebody's at, like, do I understand my need for this, or am I maybe in the group of people who doesn't really know I need this? Am I highly motivated to get a product like this, or is my motivation low even though I know I need it? Like, somebody who knows they need to be drinking water every day, are they really motivated? Probably not until you've had an episode like I had where I was like dehydrated and didn't know what was going on, you know? Like there's a level of knowledge of need, and then there's a level of motivation to actually act on that. And I try to develop content based on where you're at. I try to develop a sequence of content that hits on both of those things. And so to answer your question, any funnels that I have are going to have enough motivational content and enough educational content for the type of person that I'm trying to reach. And so for one product, you might have more than one funnel, because you might have people who are highly motivated in your audience but just aren't truly aware of their need and all of their different options. Or you might have people who are aware of the options but are just like, I don't really feel like getting any of this stuff right now. So you can have different funnels which have different amounts of motivational, educational content to kind of get people to the best decision for them. And the other thing I try to do is make sure there's more than one stop-off point, more than one option. So your only option is not going to be a $600 course every single time. Or for some people, they sell more expensive courses. $2,000 course probably shouldn't be your only pitch. Maybe somebody only needs a $20 ebook or your free email course on said topic. So I hope that kind of answers your question. It's just trying to acknowledge where are the different people in your audience at as far as their understanding of the topic that you want to teach and their motivation, and then pairing some pieces of information to get them there. So, you know, motivational content might be something like a case study or a personal story or a customer client success story, or even something I've found really useful lately is quizzes that help people assess their own situation, where they're at in regards to, because it's fun because they're answering questions, and I always send them a copy of their own answers, you know, automated through Typeform, so that they can review them. But then we kind of try and place some like, I will say interpret their answers a little bit to help them see what steps they can take next, if that makes sense.
I think that is so, I mean, there's this human, I want to like spend as little time talking as possible because I have so many questions. But there's this human desire to like know about yourself or categorize yourself, and using a quiz in that I guess moment of getting someone, you know, to move to the next step is so smart. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's super helpful. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, what were you going to say? And then I'll continue.
Oh, I was going to say that I think it's super helpful anytime you can create content that helps the person themselves tell themselves what they need, as opposed to direct traditional advertising that's like, you need this steak meal at our restaurant right now. You need this type of diaper for your baby instead of this one right now. And so it's like, oh, no, I need this type of diaper because I just answered a question about my child's habit. You know what I mean? Like it's way different. So that's what
right. They start to look at it as their idea. Yeah. So I want to put a bookmark on the different funnels that you have set up, the different campaigns that you have set up, because I have a lot of questions there's so much I want to ask there, but I'll stay on track first so I don't get off topic. So in relation to launching, and what is, you know, you mentioned that this you've got this course and it's both course and also community. What's the name of that so that I can refer to it correctly?
The program is called, it's Funnels with Friends. It's funnelswithfriends.com.
Oh, right.
And that's the whole,
right, okay.
No, that's the whole program.
Perfect. Okay. So Funnels with Friends is the one we're referring to. Awesome. So, you know, so having the live workshop helped you determine the real needs and the real pain points of, you know, the different people in your audience. And that allowed you to set up different campaigns that's going to slowly lead them there. Or if that's not right for them, it's going to lead them to a different option that may work better. So if we're moving along in the process of you building that and you getting closer to launch, what else was involved as far as making sure the launch itself was a success? You know, what kind of strategies did you put in place there, or what, you know, how are you getting in front of people?
Great question. So just for my business personally, I have different tiers, if you will, of launches, in the sense that sometimes I'm launching something that is completely ready and I don't plan to modify it much. So I probably do a way different style of launch than something that's in beta, and I don't want, I don't want 1,000 people to register for it. I want more like 50 or 100 people to register for it so that I can use their initial feedback. I mean, you obviously get the concept of beta. So for this launch, I was doing something more along the lines of, let's try something a little bit smaller. And what I did there was, I initially obviously just sent out an email to my list that kind of baby mentioned it, if you will. Like, I'm so silly, I have to name everything. I call them whispers to action instead of calls to action. So it might just be like a cute little like one-liner in an email that if you read to the bottom, you know, and clicked on the link, you found out about the product. So this is what I do typically when it's a smaller launch. So I started doing that, these whispers to action. And then what I did was started using, so I have tons of example funnels in this course, which means that, you know, I have ones that I'm easily able to share for free inside the communities that I operate so that people can start to understand this concept of a funnel. So another thing I did was I made some of the content of the course available for free, and I would share it in the community. Like, here is a full breakdown of a quote unquote marketing funnel for an invitation design business. And I had avatars that went along with it. So it's like, meet Inez, she has an invitation design business. You know, meet Paul, he talks about autoimmune protocol diet for newbies, you know, like, so people were able to start saying, well, okay, I don't talk about the AIP diet, but I do help people transition to a vegan lifestyle. And so I can relate to Paul and start to use his examples, if that makes sense. But anyway, so I would be able to show an example funnel and either talk through it on a video or just explain it in text for people who more prefer to read and don't want to press play on a video, so that people were just getting used to this concept of funnels and seeing like, oh, these are not horrible things that make me sick. I can do this. So that was kind of my whole strategy, if you will, was emailing my list and then creating content. And I would also post stuff on YouTube and different outlets. It's not just talking to the communities that I've already built. I am trying to reach new people as well. But for this smaller launch, again, it was more kind of like, let me just, see if I can have 50 people or 100 people in my current audience sign up and give me feedback and learn from this and, put this in place. So those are kind of my strategies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And well, there's so many things, but I'm trying to stay on track. But yeah, I definitely get the idea. I actually really like that you give everything different names, like whispers to action. So is this when you launch this, is it an evergreen product? Is it always available, or do you have it like, are you doing, a twice a year type thing, or was it, a very, very set amount of time? What was your plan for that?
Yeah, great question. I've been restructuring my business a little bit and products, and what I wanted this product to fit into was the evergreen model, where somebody could learn about this and get this at any time of the year or day. Just because that is one of the frustrations that a lot of people expressed in my audience about various courses and various course brands that they've come across, is just like, man, it's the moment now that I want to pursue something and I have to wait 6 months or a year until this product is available again. And so, the thing is for course creators and for content creators, the thing to note is that people will figure out their need for something at different times, and their motivation will be high at different times. And if you just throw people on your interest list, there is just the possibility that they're going to find another product that fits their needs, which is fine. Not every, you don't need everyone who signs up on your interest list to end up buying from you. But I think what a lot of us could stand to do is maybe make some version of our product available to people at all times, whether that is a free course or just the ebook version of something or a workshop, just something that can help them if they're ready in the moment. So I say that to say it was an evergreen thing, but I want it to be a part of something that will be launched less frequently and open and available less frequently as well. It felt so, I want somebody to access whenever they want.
Gotcha. So they can get a piece of it at any time, which makes total sense, especially if you picked up on the pain point that people are experiencing when they've felt ready to buy something in the past and they can't because it's not the right time. So knowing that it's an evergreen option, how did you build a sense of urgency around that launch to get people excited about it, right when you released it?
Great question. I offered a really awesome price to sign up before it was ready. They were going to have to wait, I believe, 2 weeks maybe from the day they were buying in until it was released. So that helped with the urgency. And then once it was released and once it was at full price, but I was still in that beta accepting a few more people time period, I had to ask myself that exact question, like, what would actually make somebody want to buy this? And I don't necessarily always want to just like promote this like, oh, well, the price is going up. That's your one reason. Or, oh, well, you're not going to be able to get the full product if you don't buy it right now because I'm going to, make these bonuses disappear. I didn't want to always do that, even though obviously these are valid methods. Don't get me wrong. So what I started doing was just previewing the value that I was adding. So I wasn't changing the price anymore, but I was emailing people or posting in the communities. Just added a whole nother avatar with 5 more example funnels or 9 more example funnels. Would be something. And then, a day or two later, it would be like in the same community, hey, just so you know, I also added a video to give more explanation to the most complex type of funnel you could ever build, or whatever it was. So I'm now in this beta mode, creating more content based on people's feedback. How do you do this? Okay, well, I was hoping to understand XYZ. Okay, great. Well, let me make a lesson for that. And then just taking those constant changes to the course and making them points of like, you should get in this. I'm adding so much cool stuff every day. That's my only sense of urgency for you type thing.
That's awesome. So you're building all this excitement based specifically on what people are asking for or the pains that they're continuing to talk about, which I think is so smart. So what ultimately was the result? I mean, how did the launch go? If it's totally up to you whether you want to share, if you're comfortable with that, awesome. If you're not, that's totally fine. But how did you measure whether it was a success?
Yeah, great question. So during the launch period, I think the number was close to 200 people sign up. So it was open during this initial beta type thing. And I think the number of people who signed up originally was maybe 130 people or something like that. And then I had people like, where did it go? What happened? I was just waiting until, next week or something like that. And so I kind of made it available again. And that's when an extra maybe 70 or so people signed up. So in total, about 200 people during this beta period, but now I'm making it into an evergreen thing. So yay, sales get to trickle in every day. But
awesome.
Hold on, I forgot the last part of your question. What did you say? My brain.
Oh,
did you have another part of your question?
It was, I kind of rambled through it, but it was, how did you determine whether it was a success? Were you aiming for a certain revenue number or percentage of people who showed interest actually signing up, or, how did you determine that?
Great question. Okay. So I just, based on past experience, I know that there's a certain number of people in a community that are kind of necessary, if you will, sometimes to make it into what I want for people now. And so when I was first getting started and I had 71 people on my email list, if there are 10 people in a community, because 10 people join my course, I'm jumping up and down. And then I just know that my role in the community has to be X, Y, and Z to keep the engagement high and to keep, everyone getting what they need out of it. Nowadays, I try and have course communities have around 100 to maybe 300 people in them, because this is kind of like an ideal number for me right now to be in there and facilitate conversation and engagement, but also see how people are learning and growing from each other, and then actually me myself being able to log in and learn from everyone there. So my goal was really number of people we could build into this community, and that would be how I determine it to be a success. And it is a success in that sense. And then the other success factor for me was how many people are implementing what I'm saying here in these examples and in the lessons. And that is really the encouraging thing that I'm most excited about, is that more so than any other program or course I've ever released, people are like, oh, it was so funny. Like just 2 or 3 days after the course was made available, somebody in one of the communities, or in the community rather, was like, hey, I used so-and-so, this girl in who's an avatar in my class. She's like, I used Ingrid as an example, and I created the rough draft of my first 4 workbooks for my funnel. And I'm like, wait, I just released the course 3 days ago. What do you mean you created 4 workbooks? And she, she was just so inspired by examples, honestly, and just this framework to think through it. Like, oh, I just create this type of content, which is going to bring about this type of result, and I put it in this order, and then I send it to people, and I use these 30 methods you share to get people to even sign up for it to begin with. Oh, well, then let me create the content, you know? And so anyway, there were just stories like that going on in the community. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can just retire now. Feels wonderful because people are just using it. So yeah, that would be my answer.
That's incredible. Oh my God, that's so cool. I want to pause real quick. So when I sent you that Calendly link to, have you pick a time that worked for you, I did something stupid when I was setting it up. I labeled it 60-minute call, but I didn't adjust the duration of the actual software. So it only booked us for 30 minutes, which were past. So if you have anything on your calendar, I don't want to be keeping you. So do you have a hard stop?
Oh, no. Yeah. I thought it was 60 minutes. So no. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Because if you did have a call coming up right after this, I didn't want to steal extra amounts of time. But I think, in talking about it being an evergreen piece of content, or I guess an evergreen resource long term, now is probably a good time to go back to those like different funnels that you've set up, based on what level of awareness people are at about whether they have a problem or whether they're motivated to solve that problem. So, I've been to your site and I can see myself that you have a number of different ways that people can enter into those funnels. So how did you, and this may be a long answer, but how did you start figuring out for each of those different types of people, or maybe they're all in the same audience, but they're at different stages of awareness. How did you figure out what type of content was going to be interesting to people at those different stages?
That's an awesome question. And I think there are so many ways to go about it, and that, each brand owner has to find what works for them. For me, it initially, back when I had zero audience, started by just writing the stuff that used to frustrate me and seeing what resonated with people. So, I'm at 0 blog readers, 0 followers on Pinterest. I didn't even believe in Pinterest back then. 0 everything basically. And it was like, well, let me just bang out this 5,000 words on how to start an XYZ type of business, or whatever the article would be. And then I would go about, doing whatever I thought might help. Like I would share on my personal Facebook sometimes, or add a pin to Pinterest, even though I'm like, what is this? This is stupid. This is not going to help at all, which now it's my biggest traffic referral. But anyway, it was kind of publishing content and getting those initial readers and seeing where were people leaving comments. And then also tuning in to see, like, what are they saying, and then what are they actually meaning by this question. You're asking a question, but there's also probably something else that you want to get at that is just the underlying motivator for the question. So that's what I always tried to literally ask myself every time I was reading somebody's comment, whether there was a question involved or not, was, what are they saying? What are they saying? And then that second question was the time when I thought to myself what it is they really are wanting or needing. And that, I think that second question helped me create my content list. Like I would just sit down and I had a questions doc, I still have it, and I would paste in everyone's questions or comments. And I would also go to Twitter and just steal questions from people who weren't even talking to me, right? And I would paste them into this document and then start to brain dump ideas from that. So those are when those initial content ideas started coming up. How I do it more fast forward, and now that I've gotten, I think, a little more intelligent, I belong to a few communities online, and everyone says, pay attention in communities and engage, and you'll find your ideal audience and all of this stuff. And I agree with it, and I would tell anyone the same thing, because if you are hanging out with the people you want to help online, then they're going to say things that frustrate them or that confuse them, and they're going to give you hints on the type of content they want. And so I did a lot of that, hanging out in communities, some of the ones that I created, some of the ones that other people created. my friend Kayla Hollis has this amazing Twitter chat, Create Lounge. And so I would, participate in that. I co-hosted a couple Twitter chats with different creatives and side hustlers, as they call themselves. And so, so it was really in those moments that I'm adding to this huge questions doc and figuring out what are the products I want to create next. And then if we break those products down, what are the pieces of content that are going to already be existing inside of these products? So why not create some of them as free content to help people? So I think and hope that answered the original question, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how actionable that is. I mean, even if someone is just getting started with their website and they're not sure how to even figure out what their audience wants to hear, like going to Twitter and going to communities is such an not easy, but it's such a tangible way for someone to like take that first step and get started. So that's super useful.
Yeah, anyone can use. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Anyone can use. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say anyone can use that with really any niche, because like what I did as I was creating these example avatars inside the Funnels with Friends course is I created them based on passions that I have, and then I decided to set some of them up as actual side brands and projects. And what I've noticed, because I'm not using my current audience to promote these new things, what I've noticed is that these things really do work even in other niches or industries. And so, I mean, like, I started this new community online for this particular niche, and I got my first 4 members into this community by doing exactly what I said, like, engaging in other communities, et cetera, learning their actual questions. And then I went and created a full, like, free 18-page ebook that answered one of those questions. And then it was so, like, rewarding to get those first few email signups and those first few people in this new community. And I was like, yes, I knew it worked. Like, I mean, it's something I've done before, enough times to, like, know that I wasn't giving crazy advice. But it was just so cool that, like, right now, this week, this advice still works for a niche other than business, online business, how to market, how to make money, So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm really done
That
now.
is so cool. No, what is I think, and I'll ask one last question in relation to that specifically. And then I think I have like maybe one more or so, and we can wrap things up. But what's this niche that you've created this other community for outside your typical one?
Yeah, so there are 2 main outside projects that I'm pursuing. I'm like, what is that word? Right now. And one of them is it's related to yoga, because as a part of learning self-care as a business owner, I decided to go get my yoga teacher training a while back. And so anyway, so I have this like newfound, if you will, passion for just making sure you have a really balanced life, whether you're a business owner or just a human. And so one of them is about yoga, and then the other one is about being an introvert and how to have conversations, because I live in a different country now, and I've had to learn how to make friends out here in the streets of Mexico. And it's I thought something that would be highly challenging for me as an introvert, because I started this project of like living here for a couple months at a time earlier this year. And actually it's been this really amazing personal discovery, blah-de-blah, powerful moment type thing. And so now I've created something to help people who feel like introverts have better conversations, if that makes sense. Yes.
That is so cool. And like you said, I mean, you took what you already knew and you applied it in new scenarios, and it worked.
It's so exciting. I'm sorry, I get so freaking happy. But anyway, I'll be quiet now.
Yeah. No, as you should. That's totally what I'm looking for. And I think I'll wrap this up with one. I'll leave it pretty open-ended, so it could be a big question. But we've talked about all these triumphs and all these ways that you've gotten into your audience's head, so to speak, and built things that that you realize they want. So on the flip side of that, before we were on this call, I I did like a quick scan through your blog, just to see what you've been writing about recently. And I haven't like read into it, but I saw the title of like a recent post that was like 8 mistakes you made this year. So
yeah.
if we work, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm a newbie to that post, but looking back at these things that we've talked about, at figuring out what your audience wants, and and doing the work ahead of time to like ask those questions and understand their pain points, and researching things like that. Knowing now, that that's so important. If you look backwards, can you tell me about a time that you tried to launch a product, or even something small? Maybe it was like a blog post you thought would do super well, but it flopped, or a time that you thought you knew your audience, and it didn't go as planned, and like what you learned from that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love this question. And this is something I haven't really talked about online, maybe in like smaller communities, but not like publicly, like with a blog post or like a large email to my list. One of the things that this is so funny, but this is how I operate. And I think, okay, I'll just back up and say that this online universe that we're all part of, if you own an online business, can set you up to have very unrealistic expectations, and also understandings of what really, how do I want to say this? What's really good content or not. And what I mean by this is, sometimes you are publishing something and it's to crickets, especially when you're first starting, and you may get a little insecure because you see likes and retweets and comments for other people's content that you think is maybe not even as good as your content, or maybe it's equally good. It doesn't matter. But the point is, when you don't see the likes, and maybe if it's a product, the purchases roll in right away, even though you're like not realizing, oh, I have 23 followers on Twitter. Like maybe that's part of why it doesn't have 50 retweets the first second I tweet it, because that's a problem I struggled with. But anyway, this online space has kind of taught us to value our work sometimes, and our statuses and our updates and our pictures based on how others value them. And we only interpret or see value when we see likes and love sometimes. And I think that that's funny that even when you have a larger following, you can still take that feeling with you. And so this was probably about maybe a year ago, I think. I released my first ever product that was a higher price point than I normally release, and therefore that my audience would have been used to. And so it was something that I believe maybe was, it was over $1,000. I think maybe it was $1,100 or $1,200, and I was very nervous about it. So instead of making a big deal out of it and really presenting it and just trying to show people the exact value, I only did these baby like whispers to action, maybe in a community. I don't even know if I ever emailed out about it. I was just pretty insecure about like, wait, what are people going to think? I've built my brand on, $5 ebooks and $100, $300 courses. Like, what are they going to think? And so I presented it the way I felt about it, in this very like whisper, small baby, no one noticed me over here type of way. And when, let's say fast forward, let's say two weeks, and I only had maybe 10 people. And mind you, my email list might have been, I don't know. And again, I don't even remember how I ever even emailed about it, but my email list might have been like 15,000 people at this point. I'm just taking a guess. I don't really remember. I could go look at it. But anyway, my whole point is, I was just like, what is this? This is clearly crap. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete mentions about it. I'm going to take this down. No one will even remember that this existed. But of course, I'm still going to create it for the people who bought it. But everyone else can just pretend like I never said anything, right? And so I took down, mentions wherever I could. And then it was funny because it was such a sting. Every single time someone online would be like, oh, that's like your such and such product, or hey, are you bringing such and such back? Like, I would just cringe on the inside because it was like my failed project in my mind. And it was so funny because one of the people who bought into it was just like, this is insane. Like, this is insane how valuable it was. And somehow she must have been able to read my feelings off of the workshops we were doing live or the live chats we had or something, because she was like, I know you probably feel bad about the number of people who bought into the product, but you really shouldn't, because people just don't know how awesome it is or whatever. She was really just trying to be sweet and encouraging. And it was that moment that I realized, like, dang, like my feelings about this really came through from the way I launched it, launch in quotes, to maybe the way I'm speaking even, or something I'm doing is letting this person who's inside the community, who bought it and who loves it, know that I'm still not feeling confident. And so that really helped me change how I feel. So honestly, I feel like if I release something today and made a big deal out of it and released it to hundreds of thousands of people in context, that I would, and only 10 people bought, that I would still treat it as if 1,000 people purchased it, because that attitude can just come through somehow. But anyway, I think the real point is, if you are tuned in and you're listening to what people want, maybe you'll think to yourself, this price point doesn't really fit what I normally do, so I'm going to need to present it in a different way. Or maybe you'll think to yourself, maybe this is not the right route to go, or maybe I should ask people ahead of time exactly what they would want, or if they do hear about a product at this price point, what would they expect inside of it? There are a lot of different things that I could have done that I didn't, but that was that kind of thing. It's like, let's pretend, guys, that I never did that. Anyway, so that's kind of that story.
I think that's a really, really, I love that story, because I think so many people carry that fear. But if you, like you said, when you're in that internet world and you look at how other people, appear and how successful everyone seems to be, you feel so alone in that anxiety. And you feel like, okay, I'm the only person who doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't have, what it takes to charge $1,000 for a course. And this is just evidence that no matter what level you're at, like you always have to, like, you're always dealing with those like hesitations and those fears, and you always have to just like keep working. It doesn't ever go away.
So true. Oh my gosh.
I love that story. And I also personally may steal that idea of using of trying to figure out pricing by saying, like, what would you expect in a course of X amount of dollars? Because that, I think, is a really interesting way to get into your audience's heads without being priced down, without saying, like, I'm thinking of creating this, what would you pay? And then finding out, like, oh shit, people would only pay $100. Well, I was going to charge so much more. So that's super cool as well. Well, from everything we've covered, I think there's so much of a story to pull from this, that I feel really good about where we are. And again, Regina, I know you are crazy busy, so I so appreciate your time. If there's, if you have any questions for me, or if you want to follow up on this, or get info about kind of like what's going on with this course, please don't hesitate to let me know. It's so cool to be able to connect with you one-on-one and just, and learn about your journey so far.
Thank you for letting me talk so much. I mean, I guess that was the point, but it does feel weird to like see so much of the conversation. Oh my gosh. But thank you for listening and asking amazing questions.
It is my pleasure, rest assured. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything you need. Otherwise, I think that takes care of it. Thanks so much again.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Claire. Have a